Chapter 16. The Morning Report. No! Silas yelled and woke in a cold sweat, clutching for his throat. As he blinked in the bright morning light filtering through the curtains, he slowly lowered his hands. It was only a bad dream. The sheets were damp and tangled around him, while the staff lay on the bed next to him. Memories of the previous night flashed through his head, the staff lighting up, the chest unlocking and popping open, the animal pelt and ghostly lion that had attacked him. He remembered how the staff protected him, and the ghostly lion escaped through the window. The more he thought about it, the sillier he felt. Clearly, that wasn't real. It was a crazy dream, like all the other nightmares he'd been having lately. That was the only possible explanation. Ghost lions weren't real, and they certainly didn't talk. And even if they did, no way they'd sound like a proper British gentleman, like the guy who narrated some of his favorite nature documentaries. His imagination was running wild. Feeling better, though still exhausted from tossing and turning, Silas staggered out of his bed and poked his head into the living room. Sure, he'd woken up the whole house with his screaming. He had expected to find his family, but the cabin remained quiet and empty. That's weird. He found a note on the kitchen counter that said they'd gone to the mess hall for breakfast. The end of it read, "Didn't want to wake you. You need your rest. Love, Mom and Dad." Silas brushed his teeth, got dressed, and headed for the mess hall. He grabbed the staff, just in case. The wood felt heavy and cool to the touch. As he climbed the hill, kicking up sand with his boots, something about the camp felt different. He couldn't explain it exactly. The buildings and grounds still needed a lot of work, but something about it felt less run down. Was the camp spirit back? He pushed open the mess hall doors to breakfast aromas and happy chatter. Dad sat with his leg propped up on the pillow on the bench. His crutches rested next to him, and he bounced George on his good knee to keep him happy as Mom relaxed with her coffee. Milk dribbled from the baby's mouth. The twins were signing his father's cast with colorful pens. Dad seemed back to his old chipper self. When Silas walked up to the table holding the staff, Dad broke into a wide grin. "Looks like somebody caught the camp spirit, huh? That belonged to your Aunt Scarlet." "Archie gave it to me," Silas said, looking around for the groundskeeper. "But he wasn't there." "That was strange." "Well, it belongs in the family," Dad said, patting the empty spot next to him. Silas slid onto the bench. "Your aunt carried that staff everywhere she went." "Yep, and Zazu used to perch on it," Timothy said. "It was his favorite spot." "Best thing for healing, a hearty breakfast," Sarah proclaimed, hurrying out of the kitchen and depositing food on the table, including a full platter of steel-cut oatmeal, homemade biscuits, and green chili scrambled eggs with cheese, all served family style. Stealthily, she slipped Silas and the twins some homemade waffles with fresh maple syrup. "Kid's got a sweet tooth," Sarah said merrily, "just like my little minions over there." The whole atmosphere felt lighter and happier than it had since the accident. His father was back from the hospital for one thing. Silas got his turn to sign the cast, scrawling his name and "Best Dad Ever." But is there more to it? Silas thought in excitement, clutching the staff tighter. Maybe bringing back the camp spirit was working after all. The doors burst open. Archie strode in. He had a strange expression on his face, almost like he was hiding something, but it quickly vanished, replaced with a big smile. "Good morn," he said, tipping his hat. "Got caught up repairing that fence out back." "The one by the animal pens?" Silas asked, clutching the staff like a totem. "Behind our cabin? But we already fixed it yesterday." "Didn't we?" "Yep, the same one," Archie said with a frown. "Can't explain it, but something big tore it down. I found footprints, too. Too big to be a coyote." "What do you think it was?" Dad asked. He clutched George tighter, and Mom squeezed his shoulder as worried murmurs rippled through the conversation. Archie tipped his hat back and scratched his head. Whatever it was awfully large. Maybe a black bear. Or a mountain lion. A mountain lion? Silas asked warily, remembering the chest and the lion. Was that what he saw the night before? But that was impossible. That wasn't real. Or was it? Well, tons of critters live up in these messes, Archie said. All the more reason to secure the fencing. You gonna be my helper again? Yes, sir, Silas said, covering his fear and tapping Archie playfully on the shoulder with the staff, making Archie roll his eyes. Feel the Camp Pride rock spirit? Taste of my own medicine, huh? Archie said, rubbing his arm with a chuckle. The twins giggled. Don't worry, Dad said, digging into breakfast and shoveling eggs and bacon into his mouth. I'll be out of this cast and up and about in no time. Just a minor delay, that's all, and we'll repair the rope bridge first thing. I was wondering, how did it snap like that? The groundskeeper shook his head and looked bewildered. Can't exactly explain it, he said with a frown. Last time I checked it, the ropes were solid. But it's been a while, I guess. That strange expression flashed over Archie's face again, almost like he was hiding something. Silas felt a surge of energy through the staff, too. Was it trying to tell him something? But he shook it off. He was just being paranoid after the previous night's nightmares and not getting much sleep. Besides, for once, everything felt like it was going to work out, okay? Why did he always have to look for something that was wrong or find things to be afraid of? Today will be different, he promised himself as he forked up the delicious waffles. It would be filled with yummy food, fun adventures, and lots of Hakuna Matatas. Time to get our sweat on, Archie said after breakfast, holding the doors open for everyone. They all headed out back to help Archie work on repairs for the camp. Even Mom joined, leaving George behind in Sarah's capable care. I raised 2 babies at once, Sarah cooed to the swaddled baby, bouncing him in her arms and making him burp. One tiny bundle of joy I can handle. Now go on and shoot. Silas basked in his mother's renewed attention, something he hadn't experienced since, well, his baby brother came along. He couldn't remember the last time she let George out of her sight. Sarah had accomplished a minor miracle. They worked to repair the derelict fencing, with Silas and the twins passing nails while Archie and Mom hammered the stubborn boards back into place. Dad watched from a chair set up in the shade with his leg propped up, yelling out directions and encouragement. Zazu perched on the staff, which was leaning up against a tree stump nearby. Hammer! Harder! He called, repeating every instruction that Dad called out to them. Dad sounded chipper and upbeat enough, but Silas could tell that he was frustrated that he couldn't do more to help out right now. Silas felt that familiar churning guilt in his stomach, but pushed back against it. Hakuna Matata, he whispered to himself. No worries. Once they got the fence repaired, they started to lay out fresh gravel on the hiking trails that snaked throughout the Pride Lands. They were all sweating hard and were tired, but there was so much work left to do. Rafi came down to check on Dad's leg and pitch in. But even with all that help, repairing the camp was going to take years. Silas felt defeated thinking about it all. How were they going to get it open for campers by next summer? His dad always got excited about ideas, but he didn't always think about how much work was actually involved in them. He'd heard his parents argue about it on several occasions, mostly when Mom got frustrated. They were opposites that way. Mom was usually the pragmatic and realistic one, while Dad was the optimist and always looking at the bright side. Silas supposed he was a strange mixture of them both. Fresh lemonade, Sarah called, ferrying out plastic pitchers stuffed with ice and homemade lemonade sweetened with local honey. She handed out cups while George slept in the baby carrier in the shade. Sarah really did have a way with babies. Barely cried, Sarah reported. Took that bottle you left us like a champ. Milk hangover, she laughed, gesturing to the sleepy expression, milk mustache and dribble on his chin. What's next? Dad asked. Archie sipped on a tall glass of lemonade and frowned, thinking it over. The huts for the campers all need new thatching on the roofs, plus a good cleaning inside the cabins. And the siding? Dad asked. It can probably hold out a few more seasons, but it needs a fresh coat of paint. Right, doesn't everything around here? Dad said in a wry voice, sounding worried about how much work there was left. He scanned all the buildings with peeling paint. Archie nodded. Unfortunately, the sun bleaches everything. Nothing lasts long in the desert. They were doing their best to speed through the repairs, but it was slow going. Silas felt worry and guilt churning again, but then he clutched the staff with Zazu perched on the top. He wasn't sure if it was his imagination or the parrot jiggling it, but he felt a jolt. Then something special happened. The sound of cars driving up the dirt road reached their ears. A caravan of vehicles started pulling into the campground parking lot. Old pickup trucks, sedans, minivans, and more. Then folks started climbing out of the vehicles. They carried toolboxes, shovels, and paint cans. It was all the folks from town, including Billy, the gas station attendant. They headed towards them, walking up the trail with fresh gravel. Dad struggled to his feet, balancing on one leg and hopping toward them on his crutches. He exchanged shocked looks with Mom and Archie. How is this happening? He asked in bewilderment.